Shortly after the devastating tsunami and earthquake that hit Japan in March 2011, Japanese automakers like Nissan, Mitsubishi, and Toyota, all of whom were either already producing or had plans to produce plug-in vehicles or hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, started to experiment with the concept of vehicle to load, vehicle to home, and by association, vehicle to grid. The idea was to use a battery electric, plug-in hybrid electric, or hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicle as a way to provide mains power to a home, business, or community in the event of a power cut, brownout, or natural disaster. In the case of those automakers and authorities in Japan, the preferred interface to make that happen was the CHAdeMO DC Quick Charge connector, an interface which, from the get-go, was specifically designed to offer two-way power transfer. It was essentially another reason to choose an electric vehicle over a fossil-fueled one. A decade ago, when those early vehicle-to-home systems were demonstrated by companies like Nissan, I remember watching with awe. You just needed to buy a special charging station for your home, and in the event of a power cut, your car would auto-magically start powering your home. Of course, it wasn't quite that simple because outside of Japan, you couldn't get such a system installed because regulations, red tape, different grid and power systems. That notwithstanding though, I still thought it was a bloody good idea, even if colleagues in the automotive press and many EV fans called it a distraction from the most important thing at the time, getting bums in seats and gas cars off the road. Since then, even though Japan as a nation has kind of gone off the electric car boil, global attitudes towards vehicle to load, vehicle to home and vehicle to grid have changed as electric vehicles have become more generally accepted. More and more cars are being shipped with ways to help you power things in an emergency. And we're now seeing both mainstream automakers like Ford and GM work on vehicle-to-home systems, as well as specialist charging station manufacturers like Wallbox develop two-way capable charging stations. It feels like there's never been a better time to go V2G or V2L. But should you? Today, I'm going to detail some of the models we know are coming to market with V2G or V2L capabilities, ask if you should be going V2G yet, and give you some pros and cons along the way. Because we've already covered the basics of V2G in this video, link in the descriptions, and covered some of the reasons why smart connected two-way charging stations could actually be good for your electric car, not bad as many people have claimed over the years, again, link in the description, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the basics today. It is totally okay with me if you want to go back and watch those with past Nikki. I won't be offended. Much. Awkward. Now's probably a good time to also clear up one common misconception. Vehicle to home and vehicle to grid can use elements of smart charging technology, but smart charging in of itself is not vehicle to grid. Smart charging makes use of IoT technology, that's the Internet of Things, if you weren't aware, to allow your home charging station to communicate directly with a server online somewhere in the ether. That server also talks to your local utility company and, assuming you've given it permission to do so, will ramp down the speed of your car's charging or in fact turn it off completely when grid demand is too high. This technology is not only proven to save you, the customer, money, but it can also have a dramatic effect on the carbon emissions of the local grid by reducing grid strain during peak periods. What it doesn't do, though, is to take power out of your car's battery pack and feed it back to the grid. That, in a nutshell, is what vehicle-to-grid technology does. So let's look at what's happening right now in that area. And by the way, V2G can be either an AC setup, where the car makes AC power using its onboard charging circuitry, or it can be DC based, where the car needs to use an external inverter to turn DC power from its battery pack into AC power you can use to power your home or other things. So far, there are a surprising number of vehicles whose respective brands have promised two-way power transfer is not only possible, but coming very soon. And while I know there are some models in Europe that I'm only going to mention in passing because, frankly, I know less about them, what with me being over here in the US, like the Sono Sion, for example, please know that the advice I'm going to be eventually giving you is more global. At the top of the list is the Ford F-150 Lightning, a truck which, beyond having up to 10 kilowatts of available onboard power from a plethora of different outlets, if you spec it that way, has the party piece option of being able to power your entire home automatically in a power cut. And, hello, disclaimer, I'm in the process of spending a not insignificant amount of money, my own money, on having Ford's system installed at my home. Partly so that we can review it on the channel, and partly so that my wife and I don't have to worry about unreliable rural power anymore. Then we have the entirety of the Hyundai Kia Genesis electric car family and their vehicle-to-load system, which right now is limited to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, Kia Niro EV and Genesis GV60, but very soon will include a whole swathe of other electric vehicles from those three marques. Vehicle-to-load isn't as flexible as vehicle-to-grid, but it's still great at a pinch. Then there's the Volkswagen and its ID family of EVs. While early ID3 and ID4 models didn't have vehicle-to-grid capabilities from the factory, newer models are coming off the production line with vehicle-to-grid, and as I understand it, over-the-air updates will eventually unlock it for all ID family variants. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. And of course, because Volkswagen's MEB platform underpins a whole slew of other electric models from associated brands like Audi, Skoda and Seat, I'm going to be extremely surprised if these models also don't eventually start offering two-way power transfer as well. I also shouldn't forget Ford's European models either, because rumours afloat suggest Ford is going to use Volkswagen's MEB platform to bring a new compact EV to market for Europe, and again, we already know Ford is pro-power takeoff. See what we did there? Pro-power? Yeah, I hate myself too. Back in North America, we have Lucid, which is doing its own version of two-way power transfer. Rivian, while offering onboard power sockets, doesn't yet offer V2G, although I'm expecting it to do so in the near future. And Stellantis, which has dropped some massive hints that it's about to do the same thing with its upcoming Ram electric pickup. Aside from trash-talking the competition, that is, that would seem a very smart move. Of course, Tesla doesn't offer V2G and probably won't for a long time because Elon Musk has been a vocal opponent of it. Plus, Tesla offers a Powerwall and frankly that would cross-shop against a vehicle-to-grid system. Last but not least, at least in terms of me mentioning it, is General Motors, which announced earlier this week that it was going to go all in on being able to power your home from your Chevrolet Silverado EV, and therefore, by extension, I'm going to expect other Ultium-based EVs, at least other higher-end Ultium-based EVs like the Hummer EV and the Cadillac Lyriq, at least in time. In an announcement on Tuesday this week, GM said that its Silverado EV will be launched at the same time as a vehicle-to-home system offered with its partner SunRun. It will be capable of powering your home from your truck in a power cut, but says GM will also be sold with optional static batteries and solar panels in a kind of holistic one-stop shop for your energy needs in much the same way that Tesla has been offering its customers cars, solar panels and energy storage products for years. In terms of charging stations, if you have a CHAdeMO car, then there are a number of different options for V2G hardware, but in the CCS world outside of branded hardware from Ford and Chevrolet, which from GM's recent press release might actually be the same kit as Ford uses, not to mention two-way charging stations from Lucid and Volkswagen, you really have to look at the Wallbox Quasar 2, a unit which was unveiled earlier this year and which has been completely redesigned to offer as good, if not better technical proficiencies to the SunRun system being offered by Ford and eventually GM. If you are buying your next EV new with V2G, you will probably go with the automaker recommended system, but I think the Quasar 2 looks incredibly impressive on paper, and I hope that we can review one in the near future. I've given you some names, so now I guess I need to give you the pros and the cons. First up, pros, and I'll start with the obvious ones. If you have a vehicle that offers a vehicle-to-load and/or vehicle-to-home system, you're going to have a secondary source of power for when the grid goes down due to brownouts or natural disasters. Moreover, you can have all of that without needing a massive, expensive static battery attached to your house. Of course, if you rent rather than own, that's a major bonus in of itself, although landlords may be reticent to let you install the bidirectional charger and associated electrical modifications. But it also means you're not having to buy an electric car and a battery pack, which is frankly one of the main reasons why I am getting a V2G system. Second, this gives you flexibility in the future when utilities have caught up with the idea of two-way EV power transfer. Right now, most utilities aren't ready for it, but Ford and other companies have hinted that in the future, they are open to the idea that your vehicle could feed power back to the electrical grid when the local utility has high demand, earning you loads of money in the process. Think Tesla's virtual power plant, but with EV batteries instead of static batteries. Third, it gives you the power away from home. Most EVs with V2L and V2G have more advanced onboard power circuitry than EVs without, and usually let you pull power out of a socket in the vehicle. This means that camping and road trips are a whole lot easier if you can power a couple of basic things from your vehicle. When we did 2 big road trips this summer in my F-150 Lightning, I used the onboard power inverters to cook food on the road using a portable induction hob. And of course, using your car or truck to power your home in a power cut means no more smelly petrol or diesel generators, no nasty pollution spewing into the air and potentially killing you in your sleep, no noisy throbbing in the night. Although that throbbing may be something else you may want to check with a healthcare professional if you get that and you don't actually have a generator. On to the cons. The first one, and I cannot stress this enough, is the fact that right now there aren't any hard and fast ratified standards for CCS vehicle-to-grid charging. We're getting close, but right now neither DC nor AC V2G has an official standard that is completely agreed on. And here in the EV world, well, we've been here before. Early Mitsubishi i-MiEVs, for example, used a J1772 AC charging inlet for slow-speed charging, but the socket was a simple mechanical affair that didn't use the electronic smarts that were later ratified to be part of the J1772 standard. That meant that early i-MiEV owners in Japan and Europe ended up with cars that couldn't talk to most public charging stations without a special dandy adapter cable. Right now, any vehicle you buy, heck, any charging station you buy that has V2G capabilities might not technically be compatible with whatever the future ratified standard is. And that's a risk if you plan on selling your car in a few short years. That's going to be even more complicated if you're going to be spending thousands of your hard-earned cash on a home integration system, which I'm about to do. For science, you monster. Which brings me to con number 2. Right now, V2G home systems are not cheap, and the number of electricians trained and happy to install them isn't very high. So again, you're likely to have to wait and have a fairly high installation bill unless you are very lucky. Maybe you're an electrician. Personally, because my Ford F-150 Lightning is a work truck and we intend on keeping it for a long time, we're okay spending money on the home integration system. But I'm not going to lie to you, if I lived somewhere with reliable power, I wouldn't be bothering right now. And I expect to get burned because this is so bleeding edge, it could frankly double as a batleth. Finally, there are bound to be teething problems if you're on that early adopter edge, so you need to be prepared for them and actively look for them in the first few years of ownership. And before I come to my final thoughts, I want to quickly address the whole "it's bad for the batteries" thing that regularly gets touted online by Shouty Bob and his buds. Most V2G systems and V2L systems operate at power levels that are an order of magnitude or more lower than the power demands on the battery pack when said vehicle is actually being driven. And the lower the current drain on a battery pack, generally the lower the impact on its health. At a tenth or even 1/100th the maximum theoretical power drain of your battery, battery health isn't a worry when using such a system. Some studies even suggest it's better for your vehicle long term to use smart charging and V2G tech. There's more in that video I mentioned back at the beginning. So, we are at the big question. Should you get V2G in your next electric vehicle? The answer, unfortunately, is complicated. If you live somewhere where you have good, reliable power and a low likelihood you would need V2G at home, just maybe to power something on a camping trip somewhere, then honestly I'd probably recommend you might want to buy a car with just V2L, but not V2G. If you do want to future-proof your investment for potential V2G use later, get a car that could be upgraded to V2G via, say, an OTA update to fix any wayward standards down the road. But be aware, it might be a hardware, not a software fix. That said, if you live somewhere with unreliable power, like I do, or a propensity to have natural disasters cause issues with your power supply, hello, Ring of Fire, and you're willing to be on the bleeding edge, go get your batleth and go for it. Get the vehicle and the hardware and have fun. Just be aware that things might change later. I am, and I cannot wait. The reality, though, is that most people will be somewhere in between those two extremes. And if that sounds like you, consider how tech-savvy and how comfortable you are with early adoption. If you are okay with it, go for it. But if you're not, then wait a few years. Let the technology mature, let the kinks get ironed out, and join in when power utilities, electricians, and automakers are a whole lot better prepared. That's it for today. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to leave your thoughts below or in our free to join Discord chat room. There are links in the video description, and if you liked today's video, why not leave us a super thanks? It's easy to do and everything you send our way goes towards helping us make great content. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and our other channel, which is Transport Evolved Take 2, and give that bell a gentle ding to be told when our next video goes live. And before I go, do check out our regular sponsors at Unspun and at Energy Sage. There are links below for both. And if you use either company and use the relevant codes, which are also listed below, you'll be helping us out too. Thanks on behalf of the entire crew go out to everyone who makes this possible, and includes everyone who supports us on Patreon and YouTube, as well as those of you who just watch the video and share it. If you are a supporter at the charged up level, you'll see your name right here on my right. And if you just joined and your name isn't there, we're sorry. We currently render the list every week or so, but sometimes our videos are produced a few weeks in advance. Thanks to our self-driving tier supporters, Mike Weeder, Patrick Boyarski, Chris Maxwell, Brian Newton, Michael Goad, Bennett Elder, Andrew Martin, Pedro Moore Pinheiro, Brophy Wolf, Chris and Michael Johnson, Taslet in the Gong, Dan Blair, Peter Dillinger, Gordon C., Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Denny Hyde, Chris Asenta and Ginny Burness, and of course, out of this world thanks to our Starman level supporters, Andrew Glenn, Anonymous Freak, JP Fagerback, Joe Bresney, John Lyons, Rory Litwin, Kevin Burrowbridge, Laura Reynolds, Marcel Ward, Matthew Drobnak, Paul Conway, Reggie Watts, Will Graylin, and Ian. If you'd like to be part of that amazing list, you can join Patreon at the link below. You can hit the join button to support us on YouTube or show us your support through Bitcoin, Ko-fi, or our cool swag store. And if you are unable to support us financially, just know that watching the video and sharing it really makes a difference to keeping the algorithm all the way up there with Kate Walton-Elliott and away from me. So thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.